This video is going to cover information on Roman numeral 4, part C on Calvinism, which as you can see here is the most significant of the new Protestant sects, or what they call branches. So make sure you're using this typed outline as well as this second page of that same typed outline on Roman numeral 4. First, let's go over some interesting background about John Calvin. We know that John Calvin was French, and he studied to be a priest at first, but later he will train as a lawyer. So very similar to or I should say the direct opposite of Martin Luther, who was on the path to being a lawyer and then had the change of heart after the thunderstorm and he became a monk. Okay, so that's nice little contrast there with Calvin and Luther as far as their backgrounds go. Calvin was influenced by humanism, especially Erasmus. And that shouldn't be a surprise to you because we all know Erasmus was all about criticizing the Catholic Church, but he did it through the use of satire, which is how he avoided getting into a lot of trouble. Due to his reform ideas about the church, Calvin will be exiled to Switzerland. So see, his ideas were way too radical and over the top for France. You have to remember, France at this time in the 1500s was very Catholic, 100% Catholic, if you look at it that way. Because remember, we don't even have Protestantism yet. So we know that Calvin trying to speak his mind in a very Catholic country did not go over very well. So he has to leave and he decides to go to Switzerland. Calvin will write what ends up becoming the foundational work for Calvinism, and that publication is the Institutes of the Christian Religion. So this should be on your number 2, and for your describe, you're simply putting that this is Calvin's foundational work. So again, it is outlining all of his beliefs. You know, you want to learn about Calvinism, then this is the publication that you need to look over. The heart of Calvin's beliefs is predestination. So here is what he believed, that God is all-knowing, and because of that, he already knows who is going to heaven and who is going to hell when we die. So it has already been predetermined or predestined. So according to Calvin, good works will not be sufficient for salvation. Okay, and there is no free will since God has already made his decision. So what Calvin is telling us is it doesn't matter what we do with our life while we are here because it's already been predetermined. So it doesn't matter how good you are or even how bad you are because everything has already been, like I said, predetermined for you. There is a however or a yet, as this PowerPoint points out. According to Calvin, good works are a sign that one has been chosen for salvation. So more about that in the next couple of slides, because there is a group that we're going to talk about called the elect. And this is going to make more sense to you when we go over that particular term. So when you study John Calvin and the Institutes of the Christian Religion, make sure you know that at the heart of Calvin's beliefs is predestination. And again, it doesn't matter how you live your life here on earth because God has already predetermined what's going to happen to you when you die because he's all knowing. according to John Calvin. So doesn't matter really what you do because God already knows what your path is. Let's take a look now at this sign of one being chosen for salvation. There are a group known as the elect. These are church members who have had their conversion experience, more about that in a minute, and should become model Christians, what Calvin calls visible saints. So with this conversion experience that Calvin's talking about, he's saying that there are Christians who have converted from being Catholic to Protestant. It has completely changed their entire life to the point where they want to share their testimony, their experience with others. And so therefore, those people make up the elect. And again, Calvin is saying they should be model Christians, those visible saints. So others should look up to them and want to live their life according to how they are living their life. Because by converting, like I mentioned, it's a life-changing experience. They've completely devoted themselves to the church, whereas before, maybe they weren't as focused. And so now Calvin says, not only are you part of the elect, which means the chosen ones, but you are going to be a model Christian so others could hopefully learn from you. We said that John Calvin ends up in Switzerland. To be specific, it was Geneva, Switzerland, and it was here that he will establish a theocracy by the year 1540. Remember, that just means a government run by the church leaders. Oftentimes, because Geneva is the new center of the Reformation in Europe, it is going to be known as the City of God. So very important. If you see that phrase, City of God, you know it is in reference to Geneva, Switzerland. This City of God, or Geneva, will end up becoming home to a lot of the Protestant exiles that had been kicked out of England, Scotland, France, and eventually they'll return with Calvinist ideas. We know that Calvin believed, and this is your little b on number 3, that church and state should be united to enforce Christian behavior. A lot of times you hear about church and state needing to be separate, but Calvin believes they should be united to enforce Christian behavior. And he also said that only those committed to following Calvinism would be allowed to live in the city. You're about to see when we go over number 4 how strict Calvin was with people living in this city of God. It's not going to be just anybody. There are definitely some strict rules that the people had to follow. So here's some proof of that. It says Calvinists were the most militant and uncompromising of all Protestants. Now, to give you some specifics to back up that statement, there was a group known as the Consistory. So this is a judiciary made up of lay elders. Lay elders are just simply those who have not taken vows to God. So this judiciary group of lay elders had the power to impose harsh penalties for those who disobeyed God's law. Literally, y'all, they would walk the streets of Geneva looking for those who disobeyed God's laws and went against the teachings of John Calvin. To give you some examples, these type of activities were prohibited for people that lived in Geneva, the City of God. Drinking, singing, specifically secular music. Now, if you're singing gospel songs, that's different, but secular music, prohibited. Dancing, usury, which is lending money at high interest rates, and gambling. So again, this group would closely monitor the activities of those living in Geneva, and there were harsh consequences. And when I say harsh, I'm talking people would get beaten, and there was possibly even death, depending on the severity of being disobedient. To give you an example of someone who did go against the teachings of John Calvin and will greatly pay for that disobedience, his is Michael Servetus. So Michael Servetus was a critic of Calvin that was from Spain, and he is going to be burned at the stake simply for his denial of the Trinity. Remember, we've talked about the Trinity before being the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit as one. And Servetus did not believe that. So what happens is all of those who were followers of Servetus, who agreed with him and not Calvin, those followers are going to be known as Unitarians. And so, of course, that's where we get the Unitarian Church from. So again, make sure you are getting this down for Michael Servetus. Despite how militant and uncompromising Calvinist seems to be, there is one thing that we all may look at as a positive, and it's their strong work ethic. Okay, Calvinists stress the importance of hard work and accompanying financial success as a sign that God was pleased. So anytime you come across Calvinists, they do have a very strong work ethic. They're going to work hard because, again, they believe the harder they work, more good will come their way, hopefully financially. And if that does happen, then that proves that God is pleased with what they're doing. The only downside to that is that suggests that the wealthy would be believed to be the elect and not the poor if it all comes down to having financial success. So again, there's going to be some, disagreement with that. When it comes to the spread of Calvinism, we know that it will have a greater impact on future generations than Lutheranism does. Remember, we said Lutheranism doesn't spread too far outside of, the northern part of the German states, maybe a few other areas, but Calvinism will spread a lot further throughout Europe. Here's a good example. In Scotland, we have a man by the name of John Knox. He is going to kind of branch out from Calvin's ideas and form what we know to be Presbyterianism. So, of course, the Presbyterian Church is established thanks to John Knox, and it got its start in Scotland. They have presbyters governing the church, and a presbyter is the same thing as a layman, someone who does not take vows to God, but yet they are governing the church. And this does become the dominant church in Scotland, to show you how popular it became. Calvinists who went to France are called Huguenots. So Huguenots are French Calvinists. They were suppressed by Catholic authorities. Calvinists who went to England are known as Puritans, and we know that the Puritans will be persecuted by the Anglican Church. If you remember maybe from American history that the Puritans wanted all Catholic elements in the Church of England eliminated. So they're wanting to purify the Anglican Church. And we know many of them decided to leave and go to America and set up some of the colonies along the eastern part of the U.S. Finally, these are the countries where Calvinism did not spread to, and this video is about to cut me off.